today a little bit about growing up in Chicago and in Detroit, and I want to talk to you about culture for a minute. So, I kind of personally feel, even though I've never lived in Detroit, I feel that you get a lot of similarities in Black culture. So, can you talk about the similarities in the culture of Chicago and Detroit and why it was so important for you to go? And I know I'm kind of jumping ahead, but why was it important for you to go to Africa? Did you say over 13, 14 times?
Yeah.
Knowing our culture here in America, between your experiences with Chicago and Detroit, how did that culture differ when you went to Africa, and why was it important for you to go to Africa?
Those are several questions. But the culture of any people gives that people a sense of identity, purpose, and direction. As I mentioned last night, if you don't know who you are, anybody will name you. And so the names that we received at birth are names that come through a culture that we did not make. Basically, Western culture, Christian culture, even Islamic culture. We didn't make that. Okay? That we have to realize that essentially we did not come to America first class American Airlines, and we didn't walk on water to get here. That basically a culture, a people, European Americans raped Africa of its people, of its material wealth, and still doing that, and brought us to the West to build the West for them. So the enslavement of African people in this country came about as a result of the annihilation of indigenous people here who said, you took my land, I'm not going to work it for you too. So you keep the indigenous people on these very small, inadequate reservations. You go to Africa and bring us here, drop us into a world not made for us, forbid us to speak our indigenous language, forbid us to have families, broke up the bonding traditions that we had. Okay. And so the enslavement of African people in America, in the Americas, was planned, was systematic, and it worked. It worked because essentially we were forced to work as indentured, as chattel slaves for hundreds of years. Okay. And so why did I go to Africa? Because I didn't know who I was. Simple as that. Not that modern day Africa could even answer that question, because there's confusion all over Africa too. Okay. But what was very clear to me, that I had to study and I had to read and I had to travel and had to communicate with people of African ancestry. And often those persons existed on the continent. So yes, I went many times to Africa and had a chance to visit with and talk with, commune with at least 4 presidents on the continent. And of course the language differences and so forth. But son, what you have to understand is that I can tell you exactly who you are by coming to your home. Because as soon as I walk into your home, there's certain things I'm going to notice within the first 20 minutes. One, is it clean? Okay. And then when I walk into the living room, I'm going to see what kind of images are on the walls. Are the images the reflection of you, the best of you and your culture, your people? Or you got black visual artists on your wall? Or you have visual work of your family on the wall? And then I'm going to go to the bookcase, if you have a bookcase. Because in your bookcase, I'm going to see what you're reading and what you're studying. And I'm going to look at the literature and see if the literature is a reflection of our people. black people of African ancestry. Okay. Then I'm gonna go to your music. The music streaming. What kind of music streaming? You got great black music. I got booty call music. What you got? All right. And then I'm gonna go to your movies, your film you're looking at. Let's see what kind of film that you got. Spike Lee's films, or you got the films that are wrapped up in a brown paper bag, you know, the pornography and all that stuff. Okay, but to really tell where that family is, most certainly you're talking about culture. You go into the children's room. What's on their walls? Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Darth Vader, and you wonder why we're confused. We don't know who we are. We have absolutely no understanding of what black people, what people of African ancestry have brought to the world and how we were the first civilizations. Okay.
Okay. So thank you for that. You spoke about moving with purpose. You spoke about not knowing who you are. And speaking specifically about myself, I do feel that burning question of who you are. And now that I've come more into the light and educated myself more throughout the past 8 years,
right.
The question burns even more.
Of course it does.
It's at the forefront of my mind all the time. Like, what are we doing now? Yeah, I'm 35 years old now. My worries and thoughts are not the same as they were when I was 18 years old.
Of course not.
And now I am actively seeking knowledge to understand who I am. My name, Tyrone, when you look it up, it's an Irish name for king. I know for sure there's no Irishman in my family.
Right.
So this name came from somewhere other than.
But when you were named Tyrone, they didn't know what it meant king.
That's true.
So it doesn't mean king to you.
Ooh.
They just gave you the name Tyrone. Sound good. That sound good. They know what it meant king. Yeah.
Right. So when you digest that, well, when I personally internalize that and digest my name, I understand that, for one, this was not a name given to me out of love and out of research,
right.
and understanding of where we come from. It was just what was going on.
Right.
And you speak about purpose, and then we come across Third World, right?
Mm-hmm.
Third World Press. So when you started this in 1967, it's one of the largest, well, if not the largest, independent black institution in the United States.
Black book publishing company.
Black book publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was two others that, when I looked it up, it said Caroline and Caroline and Jahari.
Oh, Jahari Amini and Carolyn Rogers.
Right.
I brought them in to help me.
Yes. So why was it important for you as a poet, as a black poet, to not only start this book publishing company? Why was it important for you to do it in Chicago?
That's where I live.
It's as simple as that.
It's simple as that. I had moved between Chicago and Detroit as a young teenager because my mother was always in very serious compromised positions and difficulty. And her family had moved. I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so we moved up south to Chicago and to Detroit. And that's what John Oliver Killens used to say all the time. And John Oliver Killens is one of our major fiction writers, talking about moving from down south to up south. And so she would drop us off at her sister's house, my sister and I. And so it became very natural to live in those two cities. And when I lost my mother, we were living in Detroit. And so I moved to Chicago to live with a stranger who was